and welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Resilient Woman podcast, a podcast that supports all women on their journey to becoming their most resilient self in life and in business. I'm your host, Kimberly Smith, and today I am being joined by one of my good friends, an amazing woman who she was actually on our kickoff for the year. She is a self-mastery coach, a speaker. She also has an amazing podcast called With Clarity and Purpose. And so I'm being joined by Yanet Borrego. Hello, welcome, Yanet.
Hello, dear. I'm so happy to see you here. I'm so happy to be back in the podcast. Thank you so, so much.
Of course, of course. Well, I mean, how are you doing? Today is Thursday. I mean, you've been extremely busy. We've both been extremely busy. I feel like I haven't talked to you in probably like at least a week and a half or so. And just, yeah, I mean, how are you feeling? How's your day going so far?
Yeah, so I'm doing well. I mean, as you know, I'm pregnant, 19 weeks tomorrow.
Woo!
And I know I'm so excited. We saw our baby yesterday in the anatomy scan and he's doing so well. Everything looked great. The weight was like in the right percentile. So anyways, my husband was with me and it was such a beautiful experience. So I'm very grateful for that. And as you know, with pregnancy, I've had also some complications. So yesterday I spent like 6 hours in doctor's appointments.
Oh my God.
I'm doing well, very grateful, but I'm not gonna, I like being honest and vulnerable. And this process has been very overwhelming and there is a lot of vulnerability because pregnancy itself is such a vulnerable process. And then as you know, like a month ago, they found 2 blood clots on my right leg. So I have deep vein thrombosis, which is a life-threatening condition. And even like trying to get the treatment as soon as possible was a mission. Trying to get the appointment with the hematologist was a mission. So these are the moments where I'm so grateful that my mom she has a lot of faith in the spiritual way. I mean, we believe, I'm from Cuba, we believe in everything. We pray to the plants, we pray to the rocks, we pray to Jesus, to Buddha. It's like, we are very inclusive.
The more the merrier, I say. I mean, I just published an episode on this all about it. I was like, bring on everybody, right? Everybody's invited to the spiritual party.
Everyone. So in these moments when there is so much uncertainty and so much vulnerability, and sometimes you may feel powerless, right? Because the medical system is very complex in itself. So I think these are moments where I really rely on that spiritual component, on that faith, on truly believing that even the biggest challenges are there for a reason, are there for us to learn a lesson. If not, I wouldn't be facing this. And I just I've given so much purpose to the challenge and the pain, which has helped me tremendously. And it's a process of also facing the emotions so we don't suppress them. And it's just a healing process, a beautiful and empowering healing process.
Absolutely. It's having any type of ailment, medical condition, injury, right? Like it's so triggering. It's so stressful because yes, we're like catapulted into this medical system where, unless we've had certain things happen to us before, which a lot of that is new for us, right? We have no idea what's to come. There's so many unknowns. We're putting our trust in these medical professionals, which, let's face it, sometimes we're not even sure that they know what they're talking about, right? Because doctors have to know kind of a little about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right. And so finding the right specialists and getting the right treatment. So your faith was really the main way that you kind of got through the stress of kind of getting the news and the diagnosis and then just kind of going full in.
A lot of faith, a lot of advocating for myself, because like the first time I went to emergency, they didn't find anything. And it wasn't until a week. Well, I know this is not an episode of blood clots, but I think it's worth mentioning this because there is so little information out there. And that's why the point of this is like we gotta educate ourselves, we gotta inform ourselves, and we gotta advocate for ourselves. I'm talking here in the context of this medical situation, but this truly applies to everything, career, relationships, because
Preach. Yes.
and to never settle. Like yesterday, I just changed my gynecologist because I experienced a couple of bumps that I thought were completely unreasonable.
Mhm.
And I questioned myself several times because she's super nice, but her staff and the protocols they have are not in alignment with the safety that I want to feel in this process, to be honest with you. And people pleasing, right? Because she's nice. I'm like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Like, I just feel so bad. But
What are
at
they
the end
gonna
of
think
the
of me? Like all the things.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Even telling it to her, I'm like, I'm gonna tell her. I mean, I'm gonna tell her, and and like you always feel uncomfortable having those conversations. But at the end of the day, what I've found is like it goes back to that worthiness and that belonging within us to feel that we are worthy of the best support. We are worthy of feeling safe, of feeling vulnerable. And I don't know, like for me, that has been the biggest lesson, to not settle. I mean, pregnancy is 9 months or almost 10 months, really. But this is a limited time too. Like, it's not that I have a lifetime to see if she's going to support me well or not. So after I saw a couple of situations, I'm like, okay, I'm done, and I need to look for someone else. So I think the main lesson is faith and advocating for yourself and just
Mm.
trusting that gut feeling that you get even the first time, because that gut feeling of changing practices, I got it. And I'm like, well, but let me see the next time. And then I waited, and then something else happened with this whole condition. And I'm like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. So it was right all the way along. And I finally made the transfer yesterday. So I was feeling very aligned, but still it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you bring attention to something that's so important, right? Like when there's something that's stressing us out and, just really making us feel uncomfortable and our spidey senses kind of go up and our intuition is ringing and, we have to really listen to that. And
Totally.
it can be uncomfortable. There are some really uncomfortable conversations involved in life, in adulting, right? But communication is a path to more understanding and it's an empowerment path, right? When you speak your truth, when you speak up for yourself, when you make a choice to pivot and to do something different that's going to bring you more comfort and more relief and release some of that stress, it's never a bad thing, right? And we're so afraid of, like you said, kind of what people are going to think and people pleasing and all of that. It's definitely a lesson, right? Like one that we come across a
Yeah.
lot on our path. So, I mean, well done. I know you were kind of struggling with that when we had coffee the last time. I remember you mentioning like, what do you think about this? And we're so inclined to give grace. And I think that there are moments for grace.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
And then if you are really having that intense, this is not right, this doesn't feel good to me, there is nothing wrong with cutting things off and like literally making a, snap decision in the moment to do something new, something that's going to make you feel better. And I think we think that that's like those knee jerk reactions are always this like emotional and maybe not the best, but I think sometimes they're called for, right?
Totally. I completely agree. And I do have this rule in my mind and my heart that if something comes up more than 3 times, I gotta act on it because that's
Yeah,
my
three
intuition
strikes.
talking, hey, do this, hey, do this. And I've ignored it in the past and it hasn't gone very well. So I'm like, I learned a
Preach.
long time ago to just trust it and go with it.
Good. Well, I'm glad that you've gotten all the treatment that you need. I want to talk about your coaching and everything, right? Like you're a self-mastery coach. You have a really interesting journey. Definitely kind of give people the 20,000 foot view. I mean, you shared a little bit on the kickoff for the year, but in case people haven't listened to that yet or didn't get a chance to watch, um, what does it mean to be a self-mastery coach? Who do you help and what do you help them accomplish?
Yeah, so honestly, everything started. So I'm an immigrant. I immigrated from Cuba to the US. And, my mom left everything behind, money. We left our family for me to have the opportunities she couldn't have, for me to have the freedom she couldn't have.
Mm.
Because if someone out there, if you're familiar with Cuba, it's a communist country. Your freedom is restricted. You cannot travel without permission from the government. It's just like, there is a lot of scarcity when it comes to resources, education. There are many limitations. And when I was born, she just had this dream that one day, somehow, we were going to make it out of Cuba for me to have the freedom she didn't have. Now, she didn't know how this was going to happen. By the way, leaving Cuba is illegal. She didn't have the resources. She didn't have anyone that could help her. But that vision, that why of her daughter having that freedom was big enough, and it was so much bigger than any geographical limitations that we had in Cuba. And she didn't know how, but she kept having this vision, having this vision. And one day we made it out. It was a risky process, but she's a badass. She's the strongest woman I know. And we got to the US, right? There is, I mean, we can record another episode on that because it's so much happened between Cuba and leaving Cuba and asking for political asylum and all of that.
I bet.
Yeah, it was something else. But since a young child, I always had this, I felt this responsibility. I had to grow up really quickly.
Mm.
I felt this responsibility that I wanted to give back to my family. I wanted to give back to my mom, mainly in the financial sense. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to follow the rules in the US in order to feel that I belonged, because belonging meant safety too, in order
Mm.
to feel that I was all good and my family was proud of the sacrifice they made for me to be here, right? So I always had this big sense of responsibility as a child. And that took me to get straight A's in high school, straight A's in college. I ended up studying chemical engineering. I did several internships in the oil and gas industry. I had leadership positions. And one of the biggest companies in the US, it's a multinational oil and gas company. They ended up recruiting me in Texas to work in one of the refineries. 6 figures, being 23 years old. I mean, being an immigrant, my English wasn't perfect. So I was just very excited and very proud that all of the work and the effort that I had put in with that vision in
Yeah.
mind was a reality. When that happened, I was like, I made it. I followed the path I was given in high school, in college. I followed the success checklist. This is it. Like, from here to like right now, from here to when life ends, I have everything figured out. But when I started working in corporate, it was the total opposite. I realized that I had this blank canvas, and I realized that I didn't have a checklist anymore. I realized that I didn't have a path anymore. And the
Mm.
one that needed to create that path was myself. But no one, including the educational system, no one had taught me on how to think. Everyone had taught me on what to think, which was that path that I followed, that I was, I mean, I didn't choose it, I think, but because that was the path to follow, I chose it at that moment. But it wasn't a conscious decision, of
Right.
course.
It seemed like the secure path. And I love what you said just about like you weren't taught how to think. You were taught
Totally.
what to think. And that we all kind of are, right? Like I relate to all
We
of that
all,
in the
yes.
sense that like you are kind of sold this American dream, right?
Yeah,
This American dream of like working hard and going to school and getting a degree and getting a job and like your problems will be solved, right? Like get a job with a good 401k girl and you will be all set, right? And you can be a mom and you can
that's
have it
it.
all like,
Yeah.
oh God.
That's it. Basically, it's like money, good company, like you're done. Like it's
But
good.
then what, right? Like you're in your 20s, like you have so much left to do. And what a scary feeling, right? To come up to a point where you're like, I don't have a plan. Like, now what? Like, I'm just supposed to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And for me, it was like after working a year, I just realized that even though I was considered successful to the external eye, I was completely unfulfilled. I just felt empty. I had worked all of these years for this. And when I'm doing it, actually, I just like the passion wasn't there, the love wasn't there, the
Mm.
light, the fire wasn't there. And that's when I started having that identity crisis very, very earlier on in my
Very early.
career.
I mean, I was at least
Very,
30 by the time that happened.
very early, girl. And this job was such a stressful job. I was a process engineer in a refinery. I was on call 24/7. I would be getting calls at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. almost every week and every day because there was an environmental release or something else. I mean, it was just nonstop. Plus, I didn't like it. I mean, let's be
Yeah.
honest, right? If I would have like the scope, if I would have like the environment, maybe it's a
Mm.
different story. But everything just felt so unaligned. And then my intuition, of course, starts talking to me, hey, Janet, this is unaligned. And I'm like, I'm a
Mm.
new hire. This is my first year. This is what I'm supposed to do. It. Tolerate it.
Gotta stick
Tolerate
it
this.
out, girl.
Figure it
Yes, I
out.
know, right? We're
Okay.
taught to stick it out and to not be like troublemakers and to not like, rock the boat, especially when you get to that place of having the paycheck that you've been working so hard for, the title, the respect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this perfect on paper life. And you're like, but I don't feel like grateful. I don't feel happy for this. Like it's not lighting me up.
Totally. I was literally feeling that way. And I kept ignoring my intuition. And I'm like, okay, it's okay. Like maybe this is, I mean, like you say, I just have to stick it out. I just have to tolerate. I was given this opportunity. How many of us haven't we told that to ourselves? I was given this. Of
Oh,
course, I need to make sure that everyone is like proud of me. You know what I mean? No, you were not given anything. Due to your credit and your hard work, you deserve that opportunity. No one
100%.
has given you anything that we don't deserve. Okay. At least that's how I think. And I'm sure. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but we have this thing of like, oh my God, someone gave me the opportunity. I have to. No, you have to be loyal to yourself because when you're loyal to yourself, everyone around you will be happier. Everything around you will be more harmonious. But anyways, I just kept tolerating it. And one day, for the first time in my life, my left arm went numb. My chest started just like feeling a lot of pressure. And of
Mm.
course, I went to Google and I'm like, well, I'm dying. Okay. And like literally, I didn't know about panic attacks. This was my first panic attack. And I thought I was dying. And I remember driving to emergency with my mom. My mom came to live with me around that time because everything was so stressful. And I went driving to emergency and just thinking, if I die today, is this the life that I've been tolerating instead of the life
Mm.
that I've been creating? And anyways, I was 8 hours in emergency until they gave me the results. So at that time, I realized, of course, I wasn't dying, which was good. And the doctor was like, okay, go home, drink wine, and you're going to be fine. And I'm like, okay, thank you for
They
letting
told you
me
to
know.
drink wine.
Yeah, literally, that's how he told what he told me. And I'm like, okay, that's great
He's
to
like, you
know.
got to
Thank
chill, lady.
yeah, you gotta chill, like relax. And I remember having that awakening of like, this is it. I'm not gonna let this to affect my health. I'm not gonna ignore my intuition anymore. I'm not gonna wait until crisis hits or I hit rock bottom to make a
Yeah.
decision that I already knew was aligned within me. Now, I didn't know how, I didn't know what, I didn't know the details. Sometimes we get so much into the details and we need to know everything. I didn't know any of that. I was starting this self discovery and self mastery process myself. But I knew that the bigger picture didn't fit in. I knew that the why was so much stronger that thing and that path that I was tolerating. And then that's when I started asking my employer, hey, this is what I value in a career. I mean, I was still getting to know myself, but what I knew is that I wanted to be in a role, in a position related to people development. And that's when I really started digging deeper within myself and started to get to know myself and started to know my values. What do I stand for? What's my vision? What's my bigger why? Didn't know how, didn't know exactly what. You don't need to know all of those details to start this path of gaining clarity about yourself, gaining clarity about your purpose, and mastering yourself. The first question is really like, who are we? Like, what are the things that interest us? What are the things that fire me up? And people, and developing people, and helping people gain clarity, because I was going through that process myself.
Yeah.
That was my clear obsession at that time.
Well, and
Uh,
it's
yeah,
interesting that you say that too, because it's like, I remember distinctly on my path, like, I had that same crisis, right? Like so many similarities. And um going to a therapist and, after she kind of like got to know me a bit, right? She had me do this exercise where I wrote down on this like index card, right? Something for me to like read every morning when I woke up, right? And it was, I am not here to be a leader. I am not here to achieve. I am here to get to know myself. And
beautiful.
I think that it was such a great example. I mean, just what you described too, right? Like this external validation, this external path that society has carved out for us. And really, and everybody kind of has that greater question, like, why are we here? Like, what is our purpose? And when it comes down to it, our first purpose and most important purpose is getting to know ourselves,
Totally.
loving ourselves, being with ourselves, being present, being a witness to our own experience, and being like our own best coach, right? I think that's what self mastery really comes down to, is really like being able to be conscious, aware, know what you love, know what's in alignment, and likewise know what's not in alignment, right? And knowing when to course correct and when you need a new challenge and maybe when you need to rest, right? Like it's knowing what your needs are and like how do you then meet those needs and make sure that those needs are met, or make sure that you get what you need to make you feel better.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. Because even in that moment, I looked around me, and everyone was complaining about the job, about the boss, about the thing, but no one was doing much about it. That's when I started to realize the power is inside of us, not outside of us. Yeah, the
Mm,
environment, of course, would have made it better, the boss, all of these things. But if I wouldn't have worked on myself, deep within myself, maybe I was in the best environment and I was still unfulfilled. I
right.
think that the path is within. And like you said, that's what self-mastery is about, is mastering the inside so you can master the outside. Because the outside is a reflection of what's going on within yourself every single time. I see it with myself, I see it with my clients. When you start changing yourself, you start changing your whole life. Why? Your worthiness increases. So it wasn't until I realized, after I hit crisis bottom, that of course I'm worthy of being in alignment. Of course I'm worthy of making the demands of the path that I wanted to create.
Yeah.
And when I worked on that self-worth, self-respect, and self-love, my environment started changing because I changed myself. You know what I mean? So I told them I want to move to supply chain. It's just something that aligns more with what I want, with my purpose. It was a very risky move because at that time in that company, no one would demand leaving the department. That was
Mm,
basically a career killer. But
really?
yeah, totally. Like you asking to leave that department
Mm,
was like, because remember, well, in this company, there was a very stringent ranking system. So
yeah.
if you asked to be out of the department, then probably your ranking will be affected, because why would they rank you well compared to the people who stay? Actually, you asked to leave, right? So anyways, it was just like a risky move on my side. A lot of people considered it a career killer, going from engineering to supply chain. It was seen less of like engineering. It was seen like a step down.
See,
But
and
I,
for like
yeah,
even having been in recruiting, it's funny. I just want to like say like I think well, I do a lot of supply chain stuff like
yeah,
procurement, whatever, right? I place a lot of professionals in there, and engineering is such a people think of engineering as like this, like, okay, you're gonna like be doing stuff with this specific material and building and, actually like engineering things, right? Engineers have that problem solving skill set,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Which is so applicable in different
To
areas of the
everything.
business.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you would have done well. Like, I mean, but
Oh,
yeah, maybe it
yes,
was a
totally.
shock for people then, like because you were kind of like the outlier, right? The person who first stood up and
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I don't know that this is really a good fit, where most people kind of sit back and they take it and they wait until they're absolutely like just,
Yeah.
you know, dead in the water, hating their life.
Yeah. I mean, I got so many people come to my office and say, wow, I mean, we admire you so much. And like you have inspired me. And yeah, because there is a lot of feel. And I also asked for a 2 months leave of absence.
I know. I remember that you told me
I'm like, by
that.
the way, I want to change positions, and I needed 2 months leave of absence to heal from this crazy. I
From
didn't
this
say that,
trauma
but
of being in this environment. Yeah, listen to this baller, okay? To all the listeners here who may be in a job function that is not
oh my God.
working or not
Yeah,
lighting them up, right? And so, yes, it comes back to advocating for yourself, right? Like we talked
totally.
about just a few moments ago. And, sometimes I do think that sometimes you do have to shift your environment, right? Like you do have to
Yeah,
make a radical leap to
yeah,
be on a completely new path and a
yeah,
new
yeah, yeah.
trajectory, right? Other times I feel like we've put a lot of weight, right, into our career and getting so much satisfaction from it. And we've neglected, right, these other components of ourself and our personality and our life that bring us joy or have the capacity to bring us joy and fulfillment. Because, when you think about it, like no one area of your life is meant to satisfy all of your needs and give you all of your fulfillment. Um, and that just is that, right? Like whether it's your partnership, your spouse, your children, your job, your family life, your spiritual life, like it's all of that together. I think that, if you can get things working in the right way, and kind of just in this good flow together, all meshed up. It's finding the winning combination, right? Like of
Totally.
of the certain levels, like how much of this do you really need? How much of this do you really need? Like, and how does that all play against each other?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And it starts with changing yourself, because you wouldn't change your environment unless you change something within yourself, because the decision of doing that is one that requires a lot of courage. You wouldn't talk to your partner about something vulnerable and maybe needing more time unless you change yourself. And it all goes back to really this internal world. I've worked with many clients in different areas of life, and I start my coaching with what I call a breakthrough session, which is the whole purpose of this is to align your subconscious programming to your conscious desires, because your subconscious programming is the one running the show. Those are the blind spots that you're not aware of. Behavior is subconscious, so sometimes you want to achieve a goal, but you find yourself self-sabotaging yourself and you don't know why. So the whole
Right.
purpose of this breakthrough session is to align that subconscious programming, that behavior, to your intention and goals. And we go really deep. And when we go really deep, all of my clients, high achieving women, the main root cause of all of their limiting beliefs, of all of their baggage, is feeling not enough, feeling not worthy of being loved. And when they release all of those limitations at the subconscious level, that's when they actually start getting those results that they desire. Because it all starts with that feeling worthy at the
So
end of
what do
the
you
day.
think it is? Because this is a big issue for women,
Big
for people, right?
one.
And I've struggled with these things. It sounds like you've
Oh,
struggled with these
yeah,
things. Like,
totally.
I mean, what is it about this? I mean, is it just society's perspective on women? Is it just all of these cultural paradigms that we've existed in that have made us doubt our worthiness? What? I mean, and I'm sure it's a combination too, right? Like it's everybody's lived experience, where they
Yeah,
grew up, the circumstances, the types of trauma. Um, I mean, what else do you think is the
yeah,
main cause of this, like, honestly, this, you know, pandemic of lack
yeah.
of worthiness?
Yeah. I mean, when I'm about to study the root cause, and the client is the one actually tapping into their intuition and coming up with this answer. But we look at generational baggage. I mean, and mainly men, I mean, women, we have generations of baggage. I love this quote that says, "We are the granddaughters of the witches you didn't burn," you know?
Yeah.
I mean, the women have been persecuted for the longest time to be intuitive, to be outspoken. It wasn't until the other day that we were allowed to publish a book. It wasn't until the other day, I think 1970 or something so close that it may surprise you, that we were not allowed to open a bank account under our name.
That
I
is
think
wild.
that is,
I've
I know,
heard
when
that, and
I
it is
read that,
wild.
I felt like, what the heck? Like, seriously? It's wild. So I think there is this component of generational baggage where it comes from. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to continue being like that. That's just awareness for all to heal through what
Mm.
has happened in the past so we can become more empowered, because we are very grateful that right now we are still not there, but right now we are in a way better situation than what we were before. And I feel we can use that awareness and release everything that has happened in the past, because we cannot continue living through the eyes and through the lens of the past. And when I talk about releasing baggage, that's what it is. It's like releasing all of the generational trauma and forgiving everyone in the world for it. But also, like, your childhood, of course, carries a very strong component. I love this quote from Robin Sharma that says, "We are born into perfection. Our souls are perfect, whole, intuitive, and we are seduced into average," right? And
Oh,
that isn't
yes.
that
My God,
good?
literally just gave me chills. Holy crap.
I mean, we are born, our soul is this
Yeah.
pure, perfect
Mm.
thing, energy of creation. We are creators. But, and let me tell you, our parents did the best they could with the resources they had. Okay. I think that the time that we start becoming empowered is the time that we stop blaming our parents. We cannot continue blaming our parents for the past. Honestly, they did the best they could with the resources.
Absolutely. And that generational trauma, it's not a reason to blame. We're not blaming
Exactly.
our
No blaming
previous
no one.
generations,
Yes.
and I wanted to bring this people's attention. It's a fact that I've heard, right? Is that, we all know that, like, as women, right, we're born with all of our eggs, right? So
Yes.
we living in existence today were once in the wombs, right, of our grandmothers and our
Yes.
great grandmothers, right? And that's what we mean by generational trauma, right? Is that the lives and the stress and the trauma that our grandmothers went through was imprinted on their DNA, which
Yeah.
was transferred to us on a cellular level. And that is really where we've inherited that, right? Because most of us didn't know our, great
Yeah.
grandmothers or great great grandmothers, right? But that code is held within, our mothers and our grandmothers, and it was passed on to us in our DNA. So it's like we may not know the full stories. It's in our DNA. We feel it. We may not be able to, like, and that's why I think a lot of people can't put their finger quite on it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And also why people kind of veer away from, like, therapy and going down the path of self-discovery, because they don't want to feel like it's about blaming their parents or blaming, the their lineage. It's not about that. It's about a conscious recognition of, hey, this is just a fact, right? This is a biological, physiological phenomena, right, of being a human. And now we are present and conscious and able to heal that, which is beautiful. It's amazing.
Totally. And this is scientifically proven. They have done many experiments with mice, kind of like experimenting on food that wasn't great for them. And as they started learning, their generations also were born and they started avoiding that food without having touched that food before or without having experienced anything.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. So this is scientifically proven by experiments and by data, right? And yeah, there is also this. I mean, I honestly, I started obsessing over the subconscious mind because I realized that most of the things, 95% of the things we do, we believe, we behave like our subconscious, right? And that was like several of my coaching certifications were based on neurolinguistic programming, which is the subconscious mind stuff. And the subconscious mind has two parts, right? One is the subconscious mind from childhood to now until we are adults, but the other one is the collective consciousness. The subconscious mind is the only mind that can actually communicate with your intuition, with that higher self. So there is a lot from the collective consciousness. And if you look at different cultures, you're going to see similarities, even though they were very far away geographically. Because again, there is this consciousness that if we really work on ourselves and connect to ourselves, we can tap into. And I feel that part of generational baggage comes through us with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like during this breakthrough session, we tap into the person's kind of subconscious mind and they release that with proven techniques, which is the powerful part. And I know this depends on religion, but and I have clients that are Jewish and they don't believe in past lives. I have everything, but I do also include past lives because energy cannot be destroyed nor created. It's only transformed. That's
That's right.
physics.
I
That's
love it. I
science.
literally
That's
just
physics.
heard that again this morning and I was like, yes, yes.
Yeah, so physics tells us energy just don't disappear, right? So and some of us believe in past lives as this kind of like earth school, like this physical school for our soul's evolution. And part of the process that I follow, if the client believes in past lives, we also incorporate that. But it all depends on the client's model of the world. There is no right or wrong. There is your model of the world, and that is the right thing for you. That's my belief as a coach. It's not about me imposing my views in any sense. It's about guiding the client to find their own answers and resources within them because they are whole, they are perfect just as they are already. They just need to decondition, they need to unlearn all of that programming that we
Yeah.
have been taught to believe, not with a malintent, but that's the beauty of life, right? The process of healing.
I think that it's really something, right? It's courageous to go down the path of healing and self-discovery. Why do you think a lot of people don't
Yeah.
do that?
I think based on what I've observed is that a lot of people they don't believe and you have to go deeper to reach to this conclusion, but I'm going to give you the deepest realization that I've had. A lot of people don't believe that they are worthy of getting that help. A lot of people many times they think like, oh, I can do it myself. But yeah, of course you can do everything yourself, but it's
Mm.
basically getting the right resources for you to get the results you're seeking in a faster, more efficient way. Because, I mean, if you're a coach or a therapist or whatever thing, you have been trained on these modalities. You have been literally not every coach is certified, but I mean, I love certifications because it provides me more tools. Like you have been certified to help people to get to the place they want to be faster. So why wouldn't you get that help? I think a lot of people deep within themselves, they are afraid of also what people might think.
Mm,
Like, oh my God, if I say I have a coach or a therapist, it means that there is something wrong with me. But it's the total, by the way, I used to think this in the past, and I realized there is a total opposite that demonstrates that you believe you're worthy enough, that you love yourself to get a village to support you to evolve. I mean, no one can do it by themselves. We are not meant to do it by ourselves.
yeah, total false belief that like you are supposed to go along this journey of life, knowing everything, finding everything out yourself. Like, yeah, like you could, but why not take the quicker path, right? Like you deserve to be supported,
Yeah,
and letting
totally.
yourself be supported, right, is such a lesson in like receiving, which is also such a foreign concept for a lot of us, right? Because we're taught like, well, we need to be givers and we need to be like putting our energy into other
Yeah,
people versus like putting it into ourselves, or accepting, the support
yeah.
and other people helping to satisfy our own needs. So it's, yeah, I agree, like it kind of comes back to that worthiness aspect and the societal fear. Although I do think that that's shifting, right? You see
Yeah, that
a
is shift.
lot of that changing with these different therapy apps, and it just
Yeah,
therapy in itself becoming more accessible, coaching becoming more
totally.
accessible. um I think it's the coolest thing in the world, right? When I hear
Me
somebody has a
too.
coach or a therapist, I'm just like, oh my God, tell me more. Like, what has your therapy journey been like? Like, let's geek out on it.
Yeah, I mean, right now I have my own coaches, I have my therapist because, and even in those sessions, because I'm a coach, I can fall into a trap of like, oh, I know. But I have to remind myself in all of those sessions, I am the client, not the coach
Right.
right now. I have to kind of like empty my cup because that's why I'm getting help from the people that have my best interest in their mind. That's how I think of a therapist, of a coach. These are the people that have the best interest in my mind. It's not about their agenda. It's about my results. Like they are my support group. They are helping me to be successful. So yeah, I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful process. And we are so lucky we have all of these amazing people too. All of us.
It's really humbling, right? To take off the coach hat or the
Yeah,
expert hat. I think I know a lot of women in general, and just a lot of people, right? I know, I gear this podcast towards women, but I think that there's probably some men that listen. And in fact,
totally.
you
Yeah.
you met Brian, right? My engineer, my sound engineer,
Oh,
who's
yes,
doing
yes,
our
yes.
editing or helping us on the live stream. He
Yeah, I
gave me the
remember.
most beautiful compliment the other
Oh
day.
my
He was like,
God.
I have been loving listening to all of your
That
episodes.
is so
Like,
sweet.
I am literally becoming a better man because of your podcast. I was like, oh my God.
I
Well,
love it. That's
maybe it'll
beautiful.
eventually morph into the Empowered Human podcast, right? Or the Empowered whatever. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I lost my train of thought here. Like when it comes to like asking for help and just, taking off that expert hat, right? So many of us walk through life, we're bearing the weight, right? We're taking care of our families, we're taking care of our jobs, right? Like so many people rely on us, and we kind of have this subconscious like
Yeah,
assumption and embodiment of like we're the problem solvers and we're figuring things out and we're the go-to person. And God, it's so nice to just like release that and be the student and be the person who's getting support versus handing it out to everybody else, right? Um, it's so lovely, right? Like you just walk away from those sessions with your coach or your therapist feeling, uplifted, right? Feeling lighter, feeling
yeah,
like you just released like and so many people, we don't talk about it enough. Yeah, I really feel for anybody who doesn't have a safe outlet, right? Because sometimes our family and friends are not the safest people to talk about
yeah,
our problems with.
totally.
Sometimes there's a lot of shame and self-consciousness that comes with even sharing it with the people that are closest to us because of whatever that family dynamic or relationship dynamic might look like. Families can be super judgmental. They can be traumatizing, right? Like they could be part of the problem. So,
Totally. I mean, you're totally right. Like we are also programmed to be self-reliant, right? We have to
yes.
rely on ourselves. And this is the biggest illusion of the self-reliant kind of like self-sabotaging pattern. People don't want to ask for help because if they ask for help, it means that they're not relying on themselves, which means that they are not enough to do it themselves. Like that's the biggest illusion because you think like, oh, if I ask for help, it means that I'm not good enough to do it myself. But what's behind that is really you not feeling worthy of getting the support and the help, knowing that people have the best intentions to help you. And even in this path, the more you align with yourself, the more you bring people that are in alignment with you. So I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
I think it's the opposite though too, right?
yeah,
Like, when you ask for help, I mean, obviously that's an act of bravery, it's an act of
yeah,
courage, right? Whether it's coming from a place of like crisis or just needing general support, that's one of the biggest things that I find my clients and most people are just not doing is they're not using their resources,
totally.
right?
Yeah,
And that's something that's a foundational principle that I come back to in my sessions with my clients is, well, what resources are available?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because we often overlook what's right in front
yeah.
of us. What are our
Hmm.
options here?
Yeah,
And having that realization that, well, yeah, I can keep doing this myself and keep living under this crushing weight of responsibilities and the illusion that I am the person responsible for everything. Or I can start, passing this stuff out, right? Like I gotta release some of that pressure somehow. And there's so many ways to do that. And it's like just getting creative, right? With what you
yeah.
have
No,
available.
I love that. And that's exactly right. As I was aligning my career to my purpose and everything else to kind of tie into a story, because maybe the listeners are like, what happened? Supply chain. And then, like,
I
how
know.
do you end up?
we went on a huge tangent is what just happened.
We got excited. That's what happens in our conversation.
Circling back.
Circle back to finalize the story because, of course, we want to make sure you
Well,
have the whole story.
there's been so many gems built into this. And so yeah, now we're gonna bring it full circle.
This was all done on purpose, okay?
Right.
Yeah, so I transitioned to supply chain. I was clear on my values and who I was. In 2015, I went to my first coaching certification. And that's when I felt in love with coaching because when I heard the explanation of coaching, which was a coach is not telling you what to think, but is actually kind of like guiding you on how to think, on how to access the resources that you have available within yourself already, because that's the only thing you need. I was like, that means that we are whole, we are not broken. I mean, I just love that, right? Because as a coach, right? We have many tools and skills and we questions and perspectives, right? But at the end of the day, we want every person to discover what the right path is for them. And that made me fall in love with coaching. And I was like, this is the thing I want to do long term whenever I'm ready, whenever the time comes. And yeah, I got certified there, then studied the subconscious programming. Then I wanted to get closer to that vision of coaching and speaking full time. So I kept aligning my corporate career to that vision. So from supply chain, I did very well. I believe that alignment attracts abundance. I did way better in every sense that in refining because I was aligning to myself.
Well, you were
And then,
happier, right? So
yes, I
obviously,
was
like if you're
happier.
happier and you're full of this joy, like, yeah, 100%, the results are going to be
I
better.
loved what I was doing. I was talking about coaching. I was giving presentations on wellness, on meditation, on personal development. It was just more aligned to myself. And then from there, I went to consulting, which was even more aligned to coaching. And I loved consulting. It was amazing The people were, because people are the asset, it's just like it was perfect alignment. But I always had this vision of like, I want to fully help people develop themselves. Because in consulting, yeah, I was helping oil and gas companies to be more optimized, better, etc. But I still had my vision of coaching and speaking. And in 2021, I lost someone that he was like a father. He was my role model. He was the one who taught me about meditation, about NLP. He was my uncle in Cuba. And death showed up again, like a beautiful master, a beautiful spiritual teacher. And I was like, what am I waiting for? Like, I can die tomorrow. Life is so vulnerable and fragile. And that's when I made the decision of quitting the job that I liked, because it's not that I was moving away from that job, it's that I was moving towards a bigger aspiration, which was very different than when I had that panic attack. And
Sure.
I didn't wait until I hit rock bottom or crisis. Like all of those things, all of those pains and challenges had a purpose for me to get to that place. And in 2021, I transitioned to having my full-time coaching and speaking. But I was doing it on the side while I was working on corporate too since 2020. And now I'm here. I mean, but that's the beauty. There was a lot of challenges in the path, but that was part of the soul's evolution, of my evolution, to get to a path of more alignment. And I'm
Mm.
still aligning
I
even
love
more
that. Yeah,
alignment.
it's an ongoing
It's
journey.
never
And
ending. Yeah.
a theme that we talk about here a lot, right, is, and I agree, right? Like when I found coaching, it was so in alignment. Like I knew just then. I was like, absolutely, right? Like first off, I need all of these skills. So
Yes.
thank you. Because
It
now
was
I can,
beautiful.
it obviously helps to have that training and utilizing that in your own personal life and career and everything. You kind of learn to see, okay, like this maybe doesn't feel like the best next step for me, right? And I think that that is a learned skill, right? To really be able to identify when we're approaching a zone of, I don't know, I don't want to say stagnancy, right? Because sometimes things are stagnant, but just a zone that doesn't really feel in alignment, right? When
Yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah.
veering off path and how to course correct, right? Because I think a lot of people, we go into this crisis mode of just like throwing up our hands and being like, I don't know what to do, right? Like we feel like we are at the whim of all of these external factors when we are players in the game. We are
Hmm.
participating, right? So
Yes.
make a choice, make a decision, like change something that, you don't want to do anymore. Make a choice to do something that you feel is going to bring you joy. Like there's no right or wrong decision, right? Like every decision brings us more information, more data, which then we can apply to every new situation that's laid out before us. Um, and that is so empowering, right? It's so empowering to know that we have that ability, that we are not victims. We don't have to just lay down and take what life gives us.
Yeah.
We can create that. We are co-creators. I think about it as like, how can I carve a path that I'm proud of, right? Like not just follow a path, but actually carve it, build it, co-create it. Like that is magic, right? Like that just feels so inspiring. It feels so exciting. And that's what life should feel like. It shouldn't feel like this struggle and this chore. I mean, like obviously there's challenges involved and not all of them are going to make us happy. But they are processes necessary of like really molding who we are and continuing to get to know ourselves because, every year, every decade, right, we are somebody new.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's going from surviving all the time, like, oh my God, like being nonstop, to creators, right? To seeing the bigger picture, allowing space. So many times we don't allow that space to happen for us to really connect and gain clarity on what that next step is for us. So yeah, it's a beautiful journey.
For sure. Oh my gosh. Well, let's do a little lightning round. I mean, we've had such an amazing conversation. Like, I'm already excited to put this podcast out because I know it's just full of so much amazing information, and I think like I'm walking away from it today feeling like excited for my day. And it's been a stressful week. I mean, I've been moving
Yeah.
all the things like literally I had a toddler moment the other day.
What
I've,
happened?
I've told you
Oh,
that
okay. You had a total moment.
I
I mean,
did.
hey, I've had a couple of those with this situation too. So no worries. We are in this together.
I told you that one of the other days when we had coffee that like I have these moments where I just like you're tired and you're stressed and you're just like you just want to
Totally.
cry, right? Like you
Yeah.
just literally want to lay
Yeah.
down on the floor and have a tantrum. And so I had one of those the other day. Like I was getting ready to make dinner and I was like, I don't know if I have it in me, right? But so it's been a week. But tell like what's giving you joy right now? What's lighting you up day to day? I bet I can guess, but
You can guess. I mean, the baby.
yeah, the baby.
The
So have you
baby
felt the
definitely.
baby move yet?
Yes, we went to Galveston. So due to this condition, I cannot fly. So we did the best out of this situation, and we went to Galveston 3 days, and it was very relaxing. I think the baby definitely is such a magnificent magnificent feeling, such a miracle to know that there are two hearts beating within yourself. There are two souls in a way within yourself, that there is pure creation happening within yourself. And I think the most challenging moments with all of this pregnancy, I just feel the baby or think of the baby, and my whole world lights up. And so that has been one of the ones for sure. The other one is faith. I mentioned faith, that everything happens for reasons, that things are gonna get better, but also the reminder to open up, to keep my heart open, to open up my heart and make that a practice, because sometimes with challenges or situation we can be quick to close off, and when that happens, then we see everything negative and we go into survival mode. Naturally, it happens to all of us. We all have those subconscious patterns sometimes, but it is a reminder to open up my heart and recognizing that I can create and serve my community, my people, at all times. So those are the things that have been lighting me up lately.
I love it. I absolutely love it. What are you reading right now?
Oh my God, I'm reading many books right
I
now.
know we always have multiple books
Oh my
going.
God, Lord. One of the ones that I'm reading, I started reading it last year. I need to finish it. It's just like reading a textbook, which in a great sense, it's just very heavy.
Yeah,
Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, which is amazing. But
so
again,
good.
his concepts are very deep, so you really need a day to read a page and kind of integrate everything. So yeah, that's one of my favorite books that I'm reading. And Power versus Force by, I think it's Hawkins, Dr. Stephen Hawkins, the
Oh
one who
wow.
wrote it.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'll double check. But yeah, Power versus Force, which is all about what we have been talking about, this creation
Mm.
force that we have within ourselves. Yeah, Dr. David Hawkins. Yeah. So those are the two. There are more, but those are the two that are coming to mind right now.
Excellent. Do you have a song that you've been playing on repeat?
You know what? I don't.
Just curious.
But when I look at Instagram, Texas Hold'em is everywhere. So
Right? I know that for sure is like so my brother calls these like the songs that get in your head an earworm. And so that's been an earworm.
that's definitely one of them. It's not that I've been intentionally playing, but it's popping up everywhere.
For sure. Mine these days, I've been really on a oldies kick or like, I don't know, 70s, 80s kick. And so I've been listening to a lot of Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
and Gypsy has been like, I had
Gypsy.
heard it before, but I don't know. It's hitting different these days. Like the other day, I listened to it like three or four times, like back to
Oh
back
my
to
God, I
back. And it
love
was
it.
like just a vibe, right?
That's so much fun.
It was definitely fun. What would you tell somebody who is feeling like they are at a crossroads in their life?
Yeah. I think the first thing I would tell everyone at any stage is like, get to know yourself at a deeper level and allow some silence to take place and some discomfort to take place, because the most aligned decisions are the most uncomfortable ones many times. And there are, when I'm making decisions or I'm in a crossroad, I always ask myself three questions. And this is something that I did when I quit my job, when I asked for the leave of absence, when I left relationships, romantic relationships that were not serving me. I mean, all of this is different contexts, same concepts apply, okay?
Right. Absolutely. Different landscape, same principles.
Same principles. And the first one is, am I making this decision out of fear or out of love? I would have stayed in my corporate job out of fear of that security, and I would follow my coaching passion out of love of serving and a bigger aspiration. That's one of them. Same with relationships. Growth is always going to feel unsafe because you're going out of your comfort zone. So always remember that the most aligned decisions sometimes feel the scariest. The other question is, am I making this decision out of external validation because I don't want to disappoint others, I want to please others, or internal fulfillment? Is this what's in alignment, within myself at the deepest level? And the third one is kind of like a future pacing. It's like, what's the consequence of my decision 10 minutes from now? Maybe nothing happens, or maybe I feel disappointed, or maybe I feel happy. What about 10 months from now? What about 10 years from now? Kind of like forgetting about the short-term satisfaction of the moment and future pacing into, is this in alignment with your long-term vision, which is the most important one of all? Ask yourself those questions, be honest with yourself, and allow that discomfort to take place, because it's gonna be uncomfortable to make aligned decisions.
Yeah, but it's also going to propel you. And I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
couldn't have said it better myself. You are absolutely amazing. How can people connect with you? I mean, share your handle, share your website, all the things so that people can, grab your freebies and get on your list and all the things.
I love it. So my Instagram is Yanet with Yanet, Be Coaching. I'm pretty active in Instagram. I'm also active in LinkedIn. My name is Yanet Borrego. And you can go to my website too, ybcoaching.com. And I do have a freebie related to that last question, which is for you to make rapid fire decisions if you're in crossroads. And you can get it going to ybcoaching.com/clarity. And it's for you to gain more clarity on your decisions. It's like a clarity booster, a free framework for you. So yeah.
Love it. I love it. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. I mean, I adore you. I'm so lucky to have you in my life, have you as a friend.
Aw.
And I always love the time that we get to have together. I mean, and seriously, like, how good is this episode? It is freaking fire.
You are so sweet. I'm just so thankful for you and to really support the beautiful community you have built. I know how passionate you are about your mission and vision. And I think that's one of the reasons why we connected, because we are a lot about serving. So I'm just grateful for your heart, for your soul, for everything that you are. And this episode energized me and it
Good.
motivated me to continue moving forward today. So I'm just so excited.
Me too. Well, thank you to all of you listening. Honestly, this podcast is such a joy. If you have been enjoying it, if you love this episode, share it on social media, take a screenshot, tag me at kimberly.brook.smith, or just, shoot a text to one of your besties, share the podcast. I feel like as women, we're always on the go, and it's so nice to just listen to a friendly conversation when we're on the road or wherever. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Keep shining, and I will for sure see you next time. Thanks for being here.